Hello and welcome to the PowerSwitch, gaming's call and talk radio show. My name is Peter Spezia, and today is May 27th, 2017. This is the 27th episode of the podcast. Thank you for tuning in. We use Discord as a means to add and drop callers to talk about video games and switch the power that is found in a typical gaming podcast. You can join our server to participate during recordings at rhymeswithasia.com/call. Well, thank you for joining me today. It's been a weird week. I'm kind of running on fumes here. We had a 13-hour day of work yesterday, starting as early as 4 a.m. and going to 10 p.m. at night. It's pretty crazy. And then just a wild day today. Normally we record at 3 p.m. Eastern on Saturdays, but we're at 6 p.m. Eastern today. That may be our time going forward. You'll have to stay tuned on Twitter and all as it develops. May have some changes coming on my weekend schedule, so we'll see there. Just stay tuned there. As far as housekeeping on the podcast goes, E3 Yes or No contest next week, June 3rd, is our big call-in show with predictions and everything ahead of E3 2017. That means if you're listening today in our Discord channel on Saturday, May 27th, today is the last day to participate in the contest where you get 3 bonus points attributed towards your entry. If you're listening up until June 2nd, you can still participate by going to rhymeswithasia.com/E3 contest. That's rhymeswithasia.com/E3 contest. You can participate in our E3 Yes or No contest, but you won't get any bonus points because you're literally running up to the end of the deadline there on June 2nd. As far as what am I playing, I played Nier Automata, beat up until ending A, got that first ending. I know there's much more still to go, but I was having some fun with it, but there was only so much. It had a rental for a long time, got to trade it back. I think I'm going to watch the rest on YouTube. I know it's not the same. It wasn't resonating with me as much as some other people did, but I was enjoying it, certainly, but I think we just got 1-2 Switch in the mail as the replacement. So that'll be a good, fun game to try around and finally see what all the deal is with that game. And then also tried the ARMS Global Testpunch this morning. Pretty fun. I've enjoyed playing with the Pro Controller with that game. I had a couple of gripes with it, though. I wanted to go back and kind of try that tutorial with the Joy-Cons, with that motion control there, but there was no such option. And I found that interesting because I wanted to kind of learn the control scheme. So when I tried to, just play a match with it, when online matches were the only option, I think that was a mistake to, try another, just computer. And I don't know why the demo doesn't work for the rest of the time. Just have a dummy CPU just to test things up against. I think that's really unusual. But going online with the Joy-Cons, coming off of playing with the Pro Controller and then trying the Joy-Con, it did not work for me at all. And I know if you learned on the Joy-Con, you were having some good fun with it. Maybe the accuracy of curving the arm punches may be a little more accurate for you. It just did not work for me. But I can see it was a lot of fun. Good to have at least the demo out there. And I'm glad people generally seem to be enjoying it. So that's all pretty awesome. But today I'm going to talk about Far Cry 5. And Far Cry 5 kind of lit up the internet this week as far as video game news went, with teasing the location of Montana early in the week with some teasers there. You had the box art in the middle of the week, and that kind of set off some fury there. And then ultimately leading to the reveal trailer on Friday. So kind of a week-long revealing Far Cry 5. And it was kind of interesting seeing this revealed, first of all, because there were some rumors for a while that a Far Cry was in development, people wondering, is it in the Wild West in Montana, perhaps? And then you got some rumors before all these things started leaking out that, you might involve, some Christian extremists here, a militia kind of cult, and certain aspects there, and they actually ended up being pretty much 100% right. So the official PR speak from Ubisoft goes as follows. Welcome to Hope County, Montana, land of the free and the brave, but also home to a fanatical doomsday cult known as the Project at Eden's Gate that is threatening the community's freedom. Stand up to the cult's leader, Joseph Seed, and the Heralds, and spark the fires of resistance that will liberate the besieged community. In this expansive world, your limits and creativity will be tested against the biggest and most ruthless, baddest enemy Far Cry has ever seen. It will be wild and it'll get weird, but as long as you keep your wits about you, the residents of Hope County can rest assured knowing you're their beacon of hope. Join the resistance on February 27th, 2018 with Far Cry 5, available on PlayStation 4 system, Xbox One, and PC. So for a series that has taken place in Africa, tropical Pacific Islands, the Himalayas, it now comes to the United States. And I think many people are rather excited about the prospect of a game tackling this rarely explored premise of violent Christian extremism, the militia and the cult aspect of it. But as expected, I think some misinterpretations have kind of led some to deem this game as offensive and even treasonous. So I guess some historical background first. Developed by Ubisoft Montreal, creative director Dan Hay said that the team was kind of intrigued by the cultural tension that events such as the Cold War, September 11th, the financial crisis in 2008, all these different tensions kind of just create this, this nervousness in kind of the public eye and the public just feeling overall. And he started writing this game in late 2014. So game's been in development for almost 3 years. And it was actually rather influenced by the January 2016 occupation of the Federal Wildlife Refuge in Oregon by an armed militia armed and led by Ammon Bundy. You may remember that story happening. So kind of influenced a little bit by that, taking bits and pieces, making the story their own. Now, of course, the promotion of the game takes an interesting timing twist, not only with the divisive political climate in the United States with Donald Trump as president, but with the special election in Montana just this past week. And it's an election with a high majority that ended up mailing their votes in advance early, just to send Montana's only congressman to the House of Representatives. And Republican candidate Greg Gianforte was caught on tape body slamming a reporter on the eve of the election, which ended up being rather inconsequential as he ended up winning. So it's odd that a game that took kind of the public attention, just with its announcement and all, taking place in Montana in the United States, and then Montana takes place in the political landscape in that news sphere. So that was rather unusual. But Montana is a place of natural beauty. And it's a place to kind of detach from our hyper-connected life and to be left alone in the wilderness. So, narratively speaking, it is a place where a fictional religious extremist doomsday cult that focuses on freedom, faith, and firearms could set up shop. And so, as a result, yes, there are some who have taken offense to the game. And I kind of wanted to highlight some of these rather poor takes and kind of just break each down, I suppose. One of them says, quote, "The average American is literally the fucking villain in Ubisoft's new anti-white game. This is what they think of patriots. Fuck 2017. But why is it acceptable for something so treasonous to be made?" Well, yes, at Shitlord USA, which, quite the, I don't even know if it's a troll job there. First of all, not treasonous. Ubisoft Montreal in Canada. It's not, Americans making this game, despite, if you think, America's the center of the world and all that. Anti-white game. I don't know about that. White people are the antagonists, but unusual to say it's an anti-white game. And, if you think of, extreme religious cult that are kind of doomsday people, if you think of those as patriots, I don't know what to tell you there, bud. That's kind of reflective on you, I think. Next one here. Libs unironically self-gratifying themselves at the prospect of shooting Republicans in Far Cry 5. This coming from the online blog Heat Street. So yeah, again, if you want to consider religious extremists who are doomsday cult worshippers, if you want to consider those Republicans, your everyday, normal Republicans, well, have at it, but you're pretty well misinformed there. Next one here. Guess who are the villains in the new Far Cry game? Muslim terrorists who explode nail bombs? ISIS who burn people alive? Nope. Christians. At Ramsey Paul. Again, they are Christians who are extremists who are leading this town of Hope County, Montana, or area of Hope County, Montana, kind of controlling people by force. I mean, what we even have in the background here, saying souls do not harvest themselves. They are taking people by force, using them by whatever means necessary, ruling over the area with an iron fist with their militia. But if you want to boil that down as just Christians, go right ahead. And finally, I just watched teaser trailer for Far Cry 5. This game is going to make rural right-wing Christian terrorism look positively badass. At Clark Hat there. Don't read the rest of that thread on Twitter. It gets really weird and really cringy, actually. But again, if you're saying that terrorism looks badass, I mean, yeah, maybe taking down those terrorists, kind of looks badass. I don't know. I mean, I think that's what people are maybe excited for. But hey, if you think living that life of antagonizing others looks awesome, well, yeah, go for it. And you're wrong. Ultimately, I think many of these horrible takes kind of just end up on a few false perspectives here. I mean, you have associating normal Christians and Republicans with members of an extremist cult. That's pretty horrible. Just associating personally with the values of said cult. If you associate with that, I think that says something about you. Associating the values of that cult with real Americans and patriots, really? No. And just also, it all comes down to, having issues with not killing those who are not white. If you have an issue with, killing those who are white, but say, well, why aren't they Muslim? Why are they not white? I mean, if you can just play any other first person shooter, really. If you play the Modern Warfare series, did you go play that? Or if you have an issue killing Americans, I bet you love Grand Theft Auto 5. You probably kill plenty of Americans there. Is that a big issue to you? So many horrible, just flat out bad and wrong takes out there with Far Cry 5. For some people, it's amusing. For some, it's rather frustrating, and that's where I kind of lie. As far as my take goes on Far Cry 5, I find the premise to be rather exciting because it gets people talking. It is something that is generating a lot of conversation on the internet, and whether it's good or bad, it gets people talking about games and the value of it as an art form. And it's interesting to me that it turns the mirror on religious extremism. I think, many people, when, one of those bad takes was kind of talking about it. Oh, just Muslims are all responsible for terrorists. No, not at all. It's actually the religious extremists, Muslims that, you mentioned ISIS, like those are religious extremists. It's kind of comparing the same thing to these Christians, fictional Christians, by the way. Let's not forget that. I think it's interesting to kind of turn the mirror and kind of be a little self-reflective on that. It's not always the fear of the other, but kind of wondering what's kind of maybe in our own backyard and possibly the dangers there. I think it's overall good for games as an art form to explore these kind of topics. Now, I wouldn't go into playing Far Cry 5 expecting a grand, shaking, moving political statement. I think if you go in that looking for that, you're kind of missing the point, or you're kind of overestimating what game writing at this kind of stage in the early developments of the medium can do. I think really, if anything, it's just setting up a new kind of antagonistic wall for the player to knock down. You've had in Far Cry games in the past, you've had big antagonists like Voss and Pagan Min, and maybe Joseph Seed is another kind of antagonist like that. It's just a new hurdle for the player to kind of take down. If you actually think of BioShock Infinite kind of in a similar sort of vein, with Comstock as a very religious kind of zealot figure, kind of as a wall to take down. BioShock Infinite didn't make any grand political or religious statement, really. It was just another, again, it's a kind of hurdle for the player to take down. At best, or maybe at worst, maybe that'll be just what this game is. Now, granted, I would love for Far Cry 5 to be a game that we talk about for years to come. I think that would show, kind of the growth as the medium, really. But it would be awesome. We could talk about it in a mature manner for years to come, really. But I guess we'll have to wait until February for that to kind of come to fruition. Anyway, I know that was all very long-winded, but that's what I have to say. When we come back, we'll get to the callers. What do you think? I would love to hear your thoughts, but you can also talk about whatever gaming topic comes to mind. And don't forget, you can also bring up what another caller had to say as well. That's all when we come back here on the Power Switch. Welcome back to the Power Switch. Let's get to the callers, but first I wanted to kind of confirm something here. We're talking about Far Cry 5, and when it comes to our E3 contest at rhymeswithasia.com/E3 contest, there's a question that says, will Ubisoft reveal a new sequel in either Rayman, Splinter Cell, or Far Cry? With, Far Cry 5 being revealed after these questions have been, kind of announced, released, what have you, that means this is a yes. They'll be showing Far Cry 5 certainly at their conference. It's going to be a yes. I just want to put it out there, kind of confirm for people. If you still have yet to submit, make sure you put yes for that question about Far Cry. Joining us from Kansas, Doba, welcome back to the Power Switch.
Thank you. Good to be back.
What would you like to talk about today? What's on your mind?
Well, I need to bring attention to a game that I'm not seeing a lot of people talk about, even though it came out like a month ago. I don't know if you've ever played The Unfinished Swan. It was a PS3 exclusive indie game.
Giant Sparrow, really, really good game. Great game.
Yes, very good game. Well, their latest game came out about a month ago, and I haven't seen a lot of people talk about it, actually. My roommate and I, Ben, kind of sat down and played it together last week. It is called What Remains of Edith Finch, and it is just, such a good game. So, Gone Home, the whole premise of Gone Home is you go home, nobody's home, and you got to sort of find out what happened and why nobody's home. Now, Gone Home is a fine game. I don't think there's a lot to it. Personally, I don't think it is as deserving of all the praise that it got, but whatever's, that's my opinion. I think there could have been more of a game there.
Yeah, I had an interesting time with Gone Home. Like many people, I don't want to spoil it too much, but I definitely thought the game was going one way, and then it hits a swerve, and I think it's a really interesting resolution. But yeah, when that's a game where I guess if you know what to do, it can be sped run like really, really quickly. Because for the first time playing, you're just kind of wandering around this house. But it's interesting when you get people who are not fond of it at all, and they kind of use the whole derogatory term, the walking simulator. I'm not a fan of, I guess, that kind of language to describe a game. But it's a different kind of narrative adventure.
I'm in agreement there, and I feel like we should be able to get a different term other than walking simulator, because there's more to them than that. I think narrative experience was one that narrative driven experience was one that I've heard before, but
I'd be pretty okay with that. Yeah.
So the concept of Edith Finch is very similar. You play as, of course, Edith Finch, who is going home to the Finch household for the first time in 7 years. She is the last living member of the Finch family.
Oh, wow.
And going through this house, it was her great-grandparents' house, her great-grandma, Edie, and they lived there, and while they were living there, Edith's mom began sealing off rooms because the rooms belonged to family members that were no longer alive. And as you go through the house, you find these secret passages all over the house, because it's really cool house. This family was obviously super rich. And you start going through the stories of how each family member died, because some of them died real young. Some of them died really hard. Some of them died in really weird ways, because I guess it's implied that the Finch family is cursed for, like, everybody dies in weird ways. So it becomes this thing where every single little section is almost an entirely different type of gameplay. Not really, but like it's a different experience. Each one has a different feel to it. Each one controls a little bit differently. Super Bunny Hop actually did a video on one of the sections. I think it's one of the very later sections of the game, if I remember correctly, that he considers to be one of the best representations of what it's trying to represent of any video game that's ever been.
Wow.
And I don't want to spoil what it is, and don't watch that video if you haven't played the game, if you don't want to be spoiled. And trust me, this is a game to keep your eye on, because I think of the indie games I've played so far this year, it's the best by far. Ben was originally just going to sit down and watch like the first 15 minutes just to see what it was up with. He sat there for the entire 2 hours. It is a 2 hour game.
Okay.
Not a very long game. About $20, I believe, is how much it costs on PSN. It's also on PC. don't sleep on this one. I'm not seeing anybody talk about it, and I don't get why. It's probably one of the best games I've played this year.
Yeah, for those who have heard talk about it, really say it's quite marvelous.
It is right up your alley, and it's super
Yeah,
short too.
yeah, and I do like that as as someone who's older and playing games and limited time and all that. That really does sound like it would be for me. I'm curious though. I mean, the Unfinished Swan, for those that haven't played it, it's the kind of narrative hook is that you have this kind of paint splatter and there's just a white canvas and you throw paint at the world and kind of the edges form based on where your paint splotches hit and you kind of navigate the world based on that. Is there any kind of gameplay hook that's like that, similar, different, or is it just like it's a house that's constructed and you're interacting with items kind of like Gone Home? And what's the gameplay hook there like?
So the main game is just wandering around the house. There's nothing like Unfinished Swan in the game, but there are a couple of the stories that sort of take a turn and change the gameplay up a little bit. Including the one that Bunny Hop talks about, changes the gameplay up probably more than anything else in the game. But no, there's nothing really like Unfinished Swan with the paint splashing and all that. But I think they do the best with what they were working with in that case. And I think if they would have added more to it like that, it would have muddled the experience a little bit. Because there are interviews with certain parts where they were like, we were going to add more mechanics to this, and then we kind of realized that made it a little bit more like complicated and made it a little harder to get through.
Yeah, because the game had been announced for a while, and it's good to see it finally come out. But I guess there was quite a while for a development time. And what Unfinished Swan was 2012, I think, is when it came out.
I want to say somewhere around
this
there.
game's been made for a while. Now, as far as people who've been praising indie games on the show in particular, you have Night in the Woods. And you have What Remains of Edith Finch. Have you played Night in the Woods?
I have, and it is also absolutely fantastic. I can't really talk much about it because I feel like talking about it at all is going to spoil like just about anything. I will say it's one of the funniest games I've ever played in my entire life. And it also deals with some real heavy subjects.
Right. I guess my question is, like, where does it stack up? I mean, if you had to recommend people, to play one or the other as their next game, would you recommend Night in the Woods or What Remains of Edith Finch? I mean, is it dependent on what kind of games they like, what kind of mood they're in? Like, where does that stack up for you?
First off, on a note unrelated to the gameplay or the subject matter itself, Edith Finch is 2 hours long. Night in the Woods is roughly 5 to 6 hours long. So if length is a factor in your decision, then that might make your decision for you immediately. That being said, I liked Night in the Woods, and I feel like Night in the Woods is going to stick with me longer than Edith Finch did, simply because of its characters and how attached I got to them and the humor and all that. Not to say Edith Finch is not a fantastic game. I would rank Night in the Woods above it.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, I'm kind of at that place where I need to find the next game I'll play kind of substantially after Nier Automata. And yeah, I'm kind of between those two right now.
I would recommend starting with Edith Finch, honestly, because it is shorter. But if you have the chance to play both, absolutely play both. They are two games that just completely knock it out of the park for what they're trying to do. And I absolutely recommend both of them with all of my heart.
Definitely will have to give it a try. Well, Doba, thanks so much for calling in. Really appreciate the time. We can find you on Twitter at the Dobaga. Is there anything you'd like to plug in particular?
Well, it's not super active right now. I just finished school, so it might get a little more active, but I can't promise too much. But I do stream over at Detective Dobaga. We did do a Nancy Drew game recently. I am possibly going to either start Final Fantasy 15 or streaming a little bit of some side stuff from Yakuza 0 soon. So there's that.
Very cool. We'll have to check it out for sure. Thanks so much for calling in. You have a great night.
You too.
And joining us from Illinois, Video Game Guru 64. Welcome back to the Power Switch.
Hi, nice to be back.
Absolutely. What would you like to talk about today?
Talk about ARMS. Kind of want to talk about Far Cry 5, which I don't have an investment in, but it sounds interesting.
Mm-hmm. it's quite a surprise when most of these games have taken place internationally, and like these big power hungry figures that are trying to take over this sort of area, and you kind of have to liberate the space. But now it comes to the United States, and I mean, gut reaction, like how did that news strike you?
I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was really getting into why those people are not good.
Yeah, they probably shouldn't be using militia power with firearms and like that, trying to dominate with faith. That's kind of goes amongst all the different tenets of the Christian faith. It's just not what they believe. I mean, this is someone who I was raised Catholic and all that, so it's kind of odd to see that difference there. And then when some people associate with it, I just find it very odd and shocking. But I think it's well, I mean, maybe Ubisoft isn't the studio that can make, the big political statement, but it's important, I think, for games to kind of tackle that sort of subject matter. But yeah, on the topic of ARMS, I mean, I know you've been excited to play at least the Global Testpunch, even the game. There's been a couple sessions of the Testpunch that have gone live already. Did you get to play one of them?
I only got to play the first one just because I was out. Yeah,
so what did you think of them? I mean, did you, take to a certain character in particular? Did you like how the game controlled?
Like Min Min.
I chose Min Min as well. Good choice.
Yeah, just for her Dragon Fist and for the around the
chakram.
One that close.
Yeah,
the chakram.
Yeah, see, interesting. I didn't use the dragon in particular. I found that one to be a little odd. So I did the heavier ball, the slower one, and then also the chakram. And that worked pretty well.
Yeah, I did that also to the last few matches that I had last night.
So I started with the Pro Controller, as I mentioned at the top of the show, and I found the tutorial was really nice to move, and like you had the dash and you had the jump, and you can jump and dash, and the different buttons, press them both to grab. It all made sense. I thought for the Pro Controller, clicking the left stick was a little odd as far as a block sort of mechanic. I thought that was a little strange. But overall, it worked really well, and the control felt really fluid on the Pro Controller. I don't get the thumbs up control, because I know I was reading some people online who were really enjoying it. Some people thought, the motion control wasn't that great, but I think if you kind of went into learning that control scheme first, maybe it's a little more natural, but jumping into it after the fact and having no training, it's so awkward for me, at least.
Yeah. The main thing I wanted the Pro Controller to have is L be left punch and R be right punch.
I thought that would be a given, yeah.
It's not.
Yeah, no, it's A and B. It's really strange.
That's so strange, and maybe I could call Nintendo and request that the controls be interchangeable, like you can set your own controls.
Yeah, I think that would have to be almost a given. I'm almost surprised. Well, it's hard to say with just a demo, right? I mean, if they can't even set up a basic, computer sort of one-on-one, even in the downtimes, like you should be able to just demo against a CPU, just like in the training montage. Just be able to practice your combos there and then take it to online in that 1 hour time. I think that's a little odd, and it's part of the appeal of the Global Testpunch that's only available for that short time. But I think they miss a big opportunity there. So I don't know in the final game if they'll have the customizable controls. I think it would be a no-brainer to do, at least in a patch. If it's not there at launch, put it in a patch, because you're right. I had the same thought. Like I thought, well, yeah, clearly if you have the Joy-Cons be, the punching, the throwing motions there, clearly the triggers would have been your punches. That just makes sense. Oh, no? Oh, okay. All right. But I think it works fine, the way it currently is set up, but there should be a degree of customization there.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I didn't get to play, too much in the in the test punch. I just tried a few matches. You got my butt kicked online when I was trying to, learn the Joy-Con system on the go, and that worked out terribly. When you are tilting them for moving, when it's just as simple as an analog stick move on the Pro Controller, like it's easily, Pro Controller, I think, for me, would be the preferred method of control. And it was interesting reading people online saying that, well, I think pros are going to go more the Joy-Con. Like, that's all part of when the game gets in the hands of people and see what's most effective. I'll be interested to see that for sure. But as far as if I'm interested in the game, I don't know if it's still going to be a purchase for me. I'll still be interested to watch kind of the community develop a bit, but it's not going to be a game that I'm itching to go out and play. But I'm really glad that it's seeming to come together as a new IP and product for Nintendo.
Yeah. And then it was just yesterday that Monster Hunter Double Cross got announced for the Switch, because the Switch has already got a big fan base, and you bring all those Monster Hunter guys into that fan base, and it's like, oh boy.
Yeah, so there are a few things that are pretty big with that, I think. Big to have, Double Cross is currently a Japan-only release, kind of an expanded port of Monster Hunter Generations for those that don't know. So it's good to see that confirmed for Switch, and, Nintendo's stock price reacted very strongly because of that. Like, it kind of reached, new highs in a way from that Double Cross news. But I think at the same time we were talking, it was a couple months ago, and there were concerns that rumors floating around that maybe Sony is throwing some money at Capcom to bring Monster Hunter to PS4. And those rumors are not going away, interestingly enough. Reading some reports from different sources,
maybe the mainline series, like Monster Hunter 5, will be on PS4.
Yeah, and that's the rumor going about, is that Monster Hunter 5 may be the one that's brought to PS4. The rumored report says that it may possibly be a streamlined version, so maybe not as many items, armor pieces, what have you. And there's some concern about that. Almost like, does it perform like Street Fighter 5 would on PS4? But there would be talk of bringing the portable Monster Hunter portable series back for Switch. So even though, if the rumor is true that Sony's throwing money at Capcom to bring Monster Hunter to PS4, it's not like Switch will be left out in the cold, which I think that's a good thing. I mean, there was a lot of, big boosts to the series with, 3 and 4, brought to Nintendo platforms. So it's good to kind of see that loyalty continue in some way. But man, if Sony's going to throw a ton of money at Capcom, and who are they to say no?
Guess that's okay, just because I feel like more people would the portable Monster Hunter, because more people are getting into it and meeting up and playing portable Monster Hunter.
Right. I think there would be an allure of playing Monster Hunter on the go, especially if it ends up being the more hardcore version. If they're talking about streamlining the series and kind of dumbing it down to bring more people into it, I think there would be more of an appeal on Switch. So at least that seems to be very interesting.
Echoes, Shadows of Valentia is really cool, and people should buy it.
Yeah, you having a good time with Fire Emblem Echoes?
Yeah, it's really interesting. The voice acting is amazing because it's all voice acted, and I love it.
Yeah, I've been hearing good things about. It's a different kind of, more focused on the narrative than Fates or even maybe Awakening, and I'm hearing that's really resonating with a lot of people.
And you don't get to make a custom character, and I think I feel like that's good, because you can do more with voice acting if you don't have a custom character, because the only thing with the custom character is you can only say him or them or something like that.
Yeah, and then even if your customized character would only have, only a set range of phrases that are just in different pitches and different intonations and all that. So yeah, it's interesting. I think it's a good idea for that one, especially when it's a retelling of Gaiden, right? I think it's the second one in the series history to kind of just more focus on the narrative with specific characters to give it that voice acting. That's awesome. I'm glad it's, it got really good reviews. So good to see that.
Thing I picked up this week is Disgaea 5.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the one thing with that game that I saw a story for is that what they brought over the PS4 trophies on the Switch version.
That's really weird.
What gives it that? I mean, so I know a lot of people had issues with Switch, like why don't they have an achievement system? And I wonder if that could maybe set a precedent, especially for games that are ported with a PS4 version. What, like Puyo Puyo Tetris had a PS4 version, like maybe there.
Maybe at the Nintendo Spotlight, they will say that achievements will be on the way with the new service.
I think that sounds like a big boss prediction for next week. That would be very interesting.
Yes.
All right. Well, Video Game Guru 64, we can find you on Twitter at that, other places around the internet as well. Anything you'd like to plug?
The ARMS Test Fire. It's really good. It's free, and you should go play it if you're interested. If you're not, you should still go play it because it's free.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, give the Global Testpunch a try. It'll be up not only this weekend, but next weekend as well. And give it a chance to try it out before it comes out in a couple weeks.
It's only 3 weeks away.
Oh, my goodness. That is really crazy to think about. I'm glad that they're giving a lot of big push now, so they shouldn't have to give it too much time at E3. I mean, have the tournament. That's fine. But yeah, focus on it now. It's a good strategy, I think.
Yeah.
Well, Video Game Guru 64, thanks so much for calling in. Have a great night.
Yep.
All right, guys, thanks for calling in. When we come back, we'll get to a headline roundup. You don't want to miss it when we come back here on the Power Switch. Welcome back to the Power Switch. This week's tempo control music is brought to you by Pokemon X and Y. You can find a new video game music top 10 list from a specific game soundtrack every Tuesday over at youtube.com/rhymeswithasia. Now it's time for a headline roundup. We start with the big news that everyone pretty much saw coming at some point, but Red Dead Redemption 2 has been delayed to spring 2018. They showed some nice screenshots. I mean, really specific details, like the fine tweaks and almost misprints in a way on a revolver. I mean, crazy detail, really impressive screenshots. But yeah, spring 2018, and it's not even for this fiscal year. So that means what? After April sometime? People are thinking maybe May, possibly June. May would actually kind of line up with when Red Dead Redemption came out in 2010. So yeah, kind of makes sense when they were kind of talking about that game last year, and it's like, there's no way it's making 2017. But that's, in a way, that's good, kind of spread out the very good games there, at least some to 2018. So that was almost to be expected. Now, we talked about Monster Hunter Double Cross, confirmed for Nintendo Switch in the previous segment there. But I want to also kind of talk about with Capcom and their expectations for Nintendo Switch. In an interview with the Capcom CEO on toyokeizai.net, there's a quote that's translated to saying, "In regards to Switch, Capcom will think of how to support the Switch while looking at how Street Fighter 2 does on the system in May." So are they really thinking of, Ultra Street Fighter 2 came out on Switch just a couple days ago as of this recording. Are they really thinking of taking a port of a game that's 25 years old and, making it $40 on the system? Are they really kind of, recommend and say, well, there's our ballpark figure for how we set the barometer pressure for how we support Switch? I think that's not fair. That's almost like what Ubisoft did with Watch Dogs, right? They delay Watch Dogs on Wii U from the rest of the system launches, and then surprisingly, when it doesn't sell that well, they're like, oh, maybe we don't need to support the Wii U that much anymore. I think it's an unfair practice, and hopefully, Capcom, who is rumored to double the RAM on the Switch based on Capcom's recommendations, hopefully they don't take that as the real recommendation. I mean, they have to consider that it's a port of a 25-year-old game, right? I mean, let's think about this here a little bit, please. Also on Switch, Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle had marketing assets leak, and with different close-ups and memes going about. This is going to be the tactical RPG from Ubisoft with their studios in Paris. It's kind of explained by some as almost XCOM, like XCOM Enemy Unknown, but for kids. The marketing materials say that a game will be 20 hours long, due out in August or September. We'll certainly hear more, at least at Ubisoft's press conference. Maybe we'll get a mention at Nintendo's Spotlight. But it's a game that people like Laura Kate Dale, had kind of pegged for quite some time. If you follow those, industry insiders, especially with that title. So kudos to Laura K. Buzz there. Microsoft's Beam streaming service is now called Mixer, and it'll be offering the feature of co-streaming with 4 streams kind of all embedded in one broadcast. So this is kind of Microsoft's Twitch competitor, at least. They're kind of going about it that way. They'll be broadcasting their E3 event in 4K, along with some other features that will have special interaction for audience members who will be watching, and so you can maybe vote up certain things and all that. So Microsoft's trying to take on Twitch with, kind of features built into Xbox One and maybe even eventually, the Windows 10 platform. But it's going to be interesting to see how successful it is, because Twitch seems like a big juggernaut right now. They're adding new features and all that. Maybe even YouTube gaming. I don't know how YouTube gaming, is that really still a thing? Does that even compare? I'm not sure. But interesting to see another competitor join the fray with Mixer from Microsoft, formerly known as Beam. And finally, Tom Holland, the Spider-Man that people love from the Marvel Civil War movie. Tom Holland going to be in Spider-Man Homecoming in a couple months' time. Supposedly tapped by Sony Pictures to play young Nathan Drake in the Uncharted film. And I don't know what reboot this is for the Uncharted film that will probably almost never be released at this point. There have been talks of new directors and new writers, and Mark Wahlberg's attached to the project. He's no longer attached to the project, and what's happening here? So this doesn't really seem to, I don't even know if it's going to go anywhere, but maybe Sony Pictures, I guess they're impressed by how he performed in Spider-Man Homecoming. They're trying to lock him down at the studio for this Uncharted picture. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, because fans of the Uncharted series, it was a great sequence in 3 when you go back and see younger Drake. But for those that are new to the franchise, do you want to see, kind of the origin story with a younger Nathan Drake, or would you rather see, in his prime an Indiana Jones-like adventure? I think doing this is safe on the part of, people won't really compare it to the games if they are fans of the series already, so there won't be as much easy criticism there, but it may not be what you need to get new fans jumped on board here. But Tom Holland's a very skilled actor, very talented performer, so if anyone could play young Nathan Drake, I'm sure it would be him. But I have, skepticism of this movie even getting off the ground in the first place. And that'll do it for this episode of The Power Switch. We are hosted by RhymesWithAsia.com, and we're on YouTube and Twitch at RhymesWithAsia. Find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at The Power Switch. And you can email us any questions, concerns, comments, or opportunities at PowerSwitchPod@gmail.com. You can subscribe to The Power Switch on podcast services such as iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. And if you could be so kind as to leave a review, that would really help as well. But most importantly, to participate in future episodes, you should join our community on Discord by visiting rhymeswithasia.com/call. It's a small but growing community, and in these early months of the show, it'll be easier than ever to have your voice heard on this podcast. If you want a YouTube video to watch, let's keep it kind of political when we talk about Far Cry 5 earlier. Go watch Colin's Last Stand, Colin Moriarty's venture after his time at Kind of Funny, to talk about history and politics and the context that involves the storytelling of history. He talks about, in particular, an episode on his channel about the impeachment of an American president. And I think in our political climate, it's important to consider what impeachment is in the American political system. Impeachment does not guarantee, whether you're guilty or not guilty, but go learn about the impeachment process and how presidents in the past have been impeached. So it's a really interesting lesson to learn. If you're still kind of feeling political and charged up about Far Cry 5, and man, if you feel offended by that game, man, I'm not sure what to tell you. As I mentioned at the top of the show, episodes on Saturday. We've been going at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, recording at 6 p.m. Eastern time here. That may be the time going forward. It's hard to say. And I know next week is our big E3 2017 prediction show. Yeah, I may have a schedule change coming up for myself personally. So I may have to change it to this later time at 6 p.m. Eastern time. So stay tuned to our Discord channel, especially on Twitter. I'll keep you guys posted. I do want to hear your big boss predictions, your Kiefer predictions, your bold or just outlandishly absurd predictions next week, June 3rd. And make sure to enter our E3 contest. That's rhymeswithasia.com/E3 contest. That's by Friday, June 2nd. Make sure to participate in that. That's a lot of fun. It's really easy to do. And the winner of that contest gets to join me after E3 is all said and done for a big post-show wrap-up. So do want to check into that. I would really appreciate that. Stay tuned to Discord and Twitter and all of that. And regardless whether it's live or on your own time, I look forward to you joining us for our next episode, the Big Prediction Special. With that, I am Peter Spezia. Until next time, switch up, call in, game on.